What's up, guys? If you want to follow the most interesting and exciting crime stories, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications button to receive a new story every day. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like.
With the trial concluded and the guilty parties facing justice, Harvard and Mike were finally able to return to their normal lives, but the scars of their ordeal remained. The factory scandal had shaken the community and highlighted the need for greater transparency and accountability in corporate practices. Harvard and Mike settled into their new routine, trying to regain a sense of normalcy. The threat of danger had receded, but the experience had left them deeply changed. They had become symbols of courage and resilience in the face of corruption. One evening, as Harvard was reflecting on the past few months, he received an unexpected call from Jessica. "Harvard, I've got some news. The factory's owners are appealing the verdict. They're trying to overturn the decision, claiming the trial was biased." Harvard sighed. "I thought we were done with this. How can they continue to fight after everything that's happened?" Jessica's voice was resolute. "They're not giving up easily, but we can't let them undo everything we've achieved. We need to prepare for the appeal and make sure the truth remains upheld." Harvard agreed. "Let's do whatever it takes to ensure that justice prevails." In the weeks that followed, Harvard and Mike worked with Jessica and the legal team to prepare for the appeal. They reviewed the evidence, provided additional testimony, and supported the ongoing efforts to maintain the integrity of the original verdict. Despite their best efforts, the appeal process was grueling and emotionally draining. The factory's owners spared no expense in their fight, employing high-powered lawyers and launching a media campaign to sway public opinion. Harvard and Mike found themselves back in the public eye, their every move scrutinized by the media. The stress of reliving their ordeal and the constant pressure took a toll on their mental and emotional well-being. Yet, they remained steadfast, determined to see the fight through to the end. One day, as they were preparing for another round of hearings, Harvard received a visit from an unexpected guest, one of the former workers from the factory. The worker, who had been a silent witness to the corruption, wanted to thank Harvard and Mike for their bravery. "I've seen how your efforts have changed things," the worker said, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You've given us a voice and shown that we can stand up against injustice." Harvard was moved by the worker's words. "We did what we had to do, but it's people like you who gave us the strength to keep going." As the appeal hearings continued, the media coverage intensified. The public remained largely supportive of Harvard and Mike, and the pressure on the court to uphold the original verdict grew. Finally, the day of the appeal verdict arrived. Harvard and Mike, along with Jessica and the legal team, awaited the decision with bated breath. The courtroom was packed with reporters and spectators, all eager to hear the outcome. When the verdict was announced, it was met with a mix of relief and jubilation. The court upheld the original decision, and the factory's owners remained convicted on all charges. The appeal had failed, and justice had prevailed once again. Harvard and Mike breathed a sigh of relief as they left the courthouse. They had faced immense challenges and fought tirelessly, but their efforts had been rewarded with a victory that would have a lasting impact. As they walked away from the courthouse, Harvard looked at Mike. "We did it. We saw it through to the end." Mike nodded, a smile of satisfaction on his face. "We made a difference, and that's what matters." With the legal battles behind them, Harvard and Mike began to focus on rebuilding their lives and moving forward. The experience had left them with a newfound sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for the importance of standing up for what is right. As Harvard and Mike settled back into their routine, the world around them seemed to shift back to normalcy. The factory scandal had become a pivotal case, sparking widespread discussions about corporate accountability and worker safety. Yet, even as the dust began to settle, Harvard couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to be done. One evening, while reviewing the media coverage of the case, Harvard received an unexpected visit from an old friend, Alex, who had worked in investigative journalism. Alex was a familiar face from the early days of the scandal and had been an invaluable ally in spreading the truth. "Harvard, I've been following the aftermath of the case closely," Alex said, taking a seat. "There's something you need to know. There are whispers about other factories and corporations engaging in similar cover-ups." Harvard's curiosity was piqued. "What do you mean? Are there more cases like ours?" Alex nodded. "Yes. It seems that the issues we uncovered at the factory are not isolated. There are reports of hazardous conditions and corruption at other facilities as well. It's part of a larger pattern. Harvard felt a surge of determination. We can't ignore this. If there are more factories with similar problems, we need to expose them. Alex agreed. I've been working on a new investigation. I could use your help to dig deeper and bring these issues to light. Harvard and Mike quickly agreed to join Alex in the new investigation. They began researching other factories and corporations, looking for patterns and evidence of corruption. The process was grueling and time-consuming, but their previous experience gave them a valuable edge. During their research, they uncovered a network of companies engaged in unethical practices. These companies were not only violating safety regulations, but also using their influence to cover up their wrongdoings. The similarities to the original factory scandal were striking. As they compiled their findings, Harvard and Mike realized that they were facing a much larger and more complex problem. The scope of the corruption was broader than they had initially imagined, involving multiple industries and powerful players. One day, while reviewing documents in their makeshift office, Harvard received a call from Jessica. Harvard, we've received reports that some of the companies you're investigating are attempting to silence whistleblowers and journalists. They're trying to prevent the truth from coming out. Harvard's heart sank. It sounds like they're getting desperate. We need to act quickly to protect those who are speaking out and ensure that their voices are heard. Jessica agreed. We're working on increasing security for key witnesses and journalists, but we need your help to gather more evidence and build a stronger case. With renewed urgency, Harvard, Mike, and Alex intensified their investigation. They conducted interviews with whistleblowers, collected documents, and worked with legal experts to build a comprehensive case against the corrupt companies. The media coverage of their new findings was explosive. Reports of widespread corruption and hazardous working conditions sparked public outrage and renewed calls for regulatory reforms. The authorities were forced to take action, launching investigations into the implicated companies. Despite the progress, the threats against those involved in the investigation continued. Harvard and his team faced harassment and intimidation from individuals and organizations trying to protect their interests. One night, as they were working late, Harvard received a message from one of their informants. Be careful. They're planning something big to try and discredit the investigation. They might be targeting you. Harvard shared the message with Mike and Alex. They knew they had to stay vigilant and continue their work despite the risks. The fight against corruption was far from over, and they were determined to see it through to the end. As the investigation continued, Harvard and his team made significant strides. They uncovered more evidence, exposed additional wrongdoings, and helped drive regulatory changes aimed at improving worker safety and corporate accountability. Their efforts not only brought justice to those affected, but also set a precedent for future cases. The scandal had far-reaching consequences, reshaping the way companies were held accountable for their actions and inspiring others to stand up against corruption. Harvard and Mike found a sense of fulfillment in their work, knowing that they had made a difference. Despite the challenges and dangers, they remained committed to their mission of exposing the truth and fighting for justice. With the investigation gaining momentum, Harvard and Mike were finally seeing the fruits of their labor. The media coverage was relentless, and public pressure had forced several companies to make significant changes in their practices. The regulatory bodies were implementing stricter oversight, and the once untouchable executives were facing accountability. Yet, amid the progress, Harvard couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something even bigger. One evening, while reviewing the latest developments, Harvard received a cryptic message from an anonymous source. The message read, "The truth runs deeper than you know. Look beyond the surface." Intrigued and slightly alarmed, Harvard shared the message with Mike and Alex. They decided to investigate further, hoping to uncover any additional layers of corruption or cover-up that might have been missed. Their investigation led them to a series of confidential documents and hidden reports that suggested a broader network of corruption involving multiple industries. It became clear that the problems they had uncovered were just the tip of the iceberg. Harvard and his team worked tirelessly to piece together the new evidence. They discovered that the network of corruption extended to influential figures in politics and finance, with connections that reached the highest levels of power. As they dug deeper, they began to uncover a complex web of deceit and manipulation. Powerful individuals were using their influence to maintain the status quo, suppressing investigations, and intimidating whistleblowers. One day, while meeting with Jessica to discuss their findings, they were interrupted by an urgent call from one of their informants. They know you're getting close. There's a plan to discredit you and sabotage your work. Harvard's concern grew. We need to act quickly to protect ourselves and ensure that our findings are not undermined. Jessica agreed. I'm working on securing additional protection and preparing a strategy to counter any attempts to discredit us. But we need to stay one step ahead of them. As the threats intensified, Harvard and his team took extra precautions. They increased their security measures, communicated through secure channels, and ensured that their work was carefully documented and verified. Despite the challenges, they continued their investigation with renewed determination. Their efforts paid off when they uncovered a critical piece of evidence, a high-level document linking several prominent figures to the network of corruption. The revelation was explosive. The document detailed illicit transactions, bribes, and coordinated efforts to obstruct justice. Harvard and his team knew that this evidence could be the key to unraveling the entire conspiracy. They immediately shared the information with Jessica and the legal team. The authorities were alerted, and the document was used to launch a new round of investigations into the implicated individuals. The media coverage of the new revelations was unprecedented. Reports of high-level corruption and collusion dominated the news, and public outrage reached a fever pitch. The pressure on the authorities to act grew even more intense. Harvard and his team continued to work closely with the authorities, providing crucial evidence and testimony. The investigations led to a series of high-profile arrests and legal actions against the individuals involved in the conspiracy. Despite the success, Harvard knew that their work was far from over. The battle against corruption was ongoing, and there were still many challenges ahead. But the progress they had made was significant, and their efforts had brought to light a level of corruption that had previously been hidden. One evening, as they reviewed the latest developments, Mike turned to Harvard. We've come a long way, but there's still more to be done. The fight for justice is never truly over. Harvard nodded. You're right, we've made a difference, but we need to keep pushing forward and hold those responsible accountable. As they continued their work, Harvard and his team remained committed to their mission. They knew that the fight against corruption was a long and difficult one, but they were determined to see it through. Their efforts had made a significant impact, reshaping the landscape of corporate accountability and inspiring others to stand up against injustice. Harvard and Mike knew that their journey was far from over, but they faced the future with hope and determination. Months after the groundbreaking revelations and high-profile arrests, Harvard and Mike were finally able to reflect on their journey. The fight against corruption had taken them to the brink, but their perseverance had led to significant changes in industry practices and legal reforms. The media had continued to cover the story, and public support for their cause remained strong. Harvard and Mike had become symbols of integrity and resilience, their efforts inspiring a new wave of activists and whistleblowers. One day, while Harvard was attending a conference on corporate ethics, he received a call from Jessica. Her voice was filled with excitement. Harvard, I've got some incredible news. The regulatory reforms we fought for are being implemented nationwide, and there's a significant push for even stricter oversight in other industries. Harvard felt a surge of pride. That's fantastic news. It's incredible to see the impact of our work. Jessica continued. There's also been a major shift in public awareness. People are more informed about corporate practices and are demanding greater transparency and accountability. As Harvard and Mike continued to engage in advocacy and public speaking, they began to see the fruits of their labor in tangible ways. New laws were being enacted, and companies were adopting more rigorous safety standards. The changes were a testament to their hard work and dedication. Despite their successes, Harvard and Mike remained grounded. They knew that the fight for justice was an ongoing process, and that there were always new challenges to address. They continued to collaborate with various organizations, working to promote ethical practices and support those who spoke out against wrongdoing. One evening, Harvard and Mike gathered with their team and supporters to celebrate their achievements. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. Jessica, Alex, and others who had played crucial roles in the investigation joined them for a small, intimate gathering. As they reflected on their journey, Harvard addressed the group. When we started this fight, we knew it wouldn't be easy, but together we faced immense challenges and made a real difference. This is a victory not just for us, but for everyone who believes in justice and integrity. Mike added, "Our work has shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can stand up for what is right. It's a reminder that one person's courage can inspire change." The evening was filled with stories, laughter, and a shared sense of achievement. The bonds forged during the investigation had created lasting friendships, and the group remained united in their commitment to promoting ethical practices. As Harvard and Mike looked toward the future, they were optimistic about the potential for further progress. The fight against corruption had opened their eyes to the power of collective action and the importance of holding those in power accountable. In the months that followed, Harvard and Mike continued their advocacy work, using their experiences to educate others and support emerging activists. Their story had become a symbol of hope and resilience, demonstrating that even the most entrenched systems of corruption could be challenged and changed. Their journey had been long and difficult, but it had been worth every moment. The impact of their work would be felt for years to come, and their legacy would serve as a reminder that justice and integrity could triumph over even the darkest forces. As they moved forward, Harvard and Mike remained committed to their mission, knowing that the fight for a better world was never truly over. They faced the future with confidence and determination, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead.